And the final piece that we're going to cover here, we're not going to go through all of the individual collections, we're just kind of picking out the ones that are sort of interesting. And one of the things that I mentioned to you before is that all of the config databases are supposed to be identical. And in fact, there is a consistency check done on a regular basis to make sure that all of the config databases are identical across the config servers. But not all of these things are going to be checked, right? They're not all required. For example, it doesn't matter if the changelog is different on each of the config servers. That is not vital to the operation of a sharded cluster. So what is vital to the operation of a sharded cluster? Well, let's list those out. The 5 collections that are checked across the various config servers for consistency are chunks, databases, collections, shards, and version. The rest can be different and it is not considered a problem. And in fact, the way that this is done is internally inside MongoDB, we compute a hash for the total contents of each one of these collections and make sure that the hash value that's returned is the same on all 3 of the config servers. You can think of it as a hash is computed and compared. If any of these are different across the config servers, the MongoS's will start throwing errors, refuse to start until that is resolved. Never update the config database directly. For any of the normal operations that you're supposed to have update the database, there will be helpers such as sh.enable sharding that we ran earlier on. Those are what you should be using to make changes to the config database. If there is something that you need to change on the config database itself, always do it through the MongoS. The reason for that is the MongoS knows how to talk to the config databases in the correct way to make sure that that 2-phase commit protocol we mentioned earlier actually occurs, that they're all kept in sync, and that if it fails, it won't actually do the right. So always do your updates, if you must, through the MongoS, and for anything that you're doing sort of a regular basis during normal operations, there should be a helper of some sort for it. You shouldn't have to go in here and actually make direct changes to those tables. But if you do, do it through the MongoS. Do not connect directly to the config servers themselves.